Hi, this is Dave Feldman. I hope you know we are recruiting for a study on lean mass hyperresponders and borderline lean mass hyperresponders. Just visit citizensciencefoundation.org/study to find out more details.
Hey, guess what? It's another episode of Two Keto Dudes. I'm Carl Franklin. That's Richard Morris.
G'day.
Yes, it is not our typical episode.
Which I should mention, we always read every single time. It's not pre-recorded. Right. And we sneak stuff in there for the listeners who are willing to put up with that.
That's right.
Content. And
we are celebrating the authenticity of Festivus today.
Festivus. Yes.
Festivus.
So Carl, tell me about Festivus. What is Festivus?
All right. Well, for those who weren't Seinfeld fans or aren't Seinfeld fans, this is a holiday that was introduced on an episode of Seinfeld. It was, Festivus is a holiday for the rest of us.
Right.
That's the idea, yeah. And there were three major parts of it. 4 if you include the Festivus meal. One was the airing of grievances.
The airing of grievances. Nice.
Yeah.
and it was... And they also had feats of strength, right?
Feats of strength. You had the meal and the Festivus pole.
And the Festivus pole. And the clock in the bag, right?
Well, so the original holiday, this came from a real thing that was started by one of the writers on the show.
Oh, right.
Dan O'Keefe. And it was a tradition started by his father, Daniel O'Keefe Sr. And if you go to festivusweb.com and look at the origin of Festivus, it has this story here. The senior O'Keefe originally invented Festivus as a way to have a holiday that was secular and not burdened by the religiousness and commercialism of the holiday season. According to family folklore, the first Festivus occurred in 1966 on the occasion of the first date of Daniel and his soon-to-be fiancée, Deborah. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Daniel O'Keefe continued to make Festivus an annual tradition among the O'Keefe clan. It had no set date. It could occur at any time of the year, usually never at Christmas. And I guess Daniel O'Keefe, who was inspired by the Samuel Beckett play Krapp's Last Tape, whose protagonist tapes himself speaking at different times in his life, used a tape recorder to record the proceedings, which included a portion where the family members spoke out about what was bothering them. Like the airing of grievances, but not officially named as such.
Nice.
The airing of grievances.
So the pole was like a substitute for a Christmas tree, but without distracting branches and
none of that.
An aluminium pole, on a stand.
None of that distracting stuff.
Apparently, there's an Instructable online for how to make your own Festivus pole. So we'll put that in the show notes.
So we're going to air our grievances today.
That's essentially what this episode's all about.
Yeah, that's right. But first, I want to check in with my buddy Richard. How you doing, man? How was your week?
Yeah, it was good. Australia won the Ashes, which is our cricket competition.
Yay!
Yeah, yay. We still have 2 more games of the 5 to play.
So wait, even if Australia wins 3 out of 5, you still play the other 2?
Yeah, because there's always an opportunity to win 5-0.
Oh, I see.
And it, for my English friends, commiserations. I'm sorry we put you through all of this again, but really, I was rooting for England in Adelaide on the second match because they had a chance. Our captain was out with COVID, or at least he was a close associate of somebody who he was in a restaurant that somebody found out they were pinged that they had COVID in the restaurant.
Yeah.
So he was out, and he's the world's best bowler. So there was a good chance that England could come back in the second match. And I was kind of rooting for them because it's always good to have a close competition. I mean, you still want to win. You want your team to win, but you want the competition to be close. But it's not been close, and so I'm kind of looking forward to the next time we play the Ashes, which is in 2 years' time in England, where the advantage will be to the English, and I look forward to that very much.
Any grievances around cricket that you would like to air at this time?
Well, I some competition would be nice, but and it's a shame that most games last for 5 days, and I should be still watching cricket today, but it finished within 3 days. So. Anyway, but there'll be another match on next week, which will be good. That'll be in Sydney, and then there's a final match in Tasmania, and then that's the end of the series. So,
are you looking forward to going back to school?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually reading through all of my texts for my undergraduate because I want to make sure that it's been like 18 months since I finished my undergraduate, and so I want to make sure that I'm up to date as much as possible with everything that I did there, so I don't have to relearn it. So. Yeah. Right.
And so you're going for a PhD, right? Or you're going for a master's first?
Master's first, yeah. So I'm doing a master's in bioinformatics, which is kind of combining the biology for my undergraduate. I did biochemistry, but it's essentially it's sort of half biology degree, half chemistry degree. It's called biochemistry, but my honours was in computational chemistry, so that was sort of veering into my old career as a programmer, and then bioinformatics is there's a lot of programming. So, I really want to nail this. So, the masters. So,
and at one point you were making a computer model of a cell. Are you still working on that? Is that going to be part of your studies?
So that was in computational chemistry. I made a computer model of the membrane, the inner membrane of the mitochondria.
Okay.
A cell is a bit bigger. That's sort of technology for which we don't have big enough computers in the world to model. This is something that we're probably about 20 years away from being able to do that. But just a little patch of the membrane was what I modelled.
Amazing.
But I modelled it accurately, so all of the diversity of lipids that are in a mitochondrial membrane. So that was for my honours. That was computational chemistry. Bioinformatics is really statistic for biology. So one of the things that I've noticed while I'm reading papers on the biochemistry of keto, I find that there's not a lot of expertise in people doing those kinds of experiments in mathematical modelling, and so I figured it's a good skill to have. I need to get a master's to get to my PhD.
Yeah.
My goal is to try and knock it out of the park. So
good.
One of my first subjects is Introduction to Programming for Scientists.
Oh, that's funny. Are you going to teach it?
No, I'm gonna nail it.
You think it'll be Fortran?
No, it's Python and R.
So R, that's good.
Yeah, R is the language that Dave Feldman's stuff is in. So
yeah, and the other podcast with the other Richard, .NET Rocks, we talk about R occasionally. Anybody who is interested in statistics, R is a programming language for statistics.
So, Carl, how are you?
I'm good. I got to tell you, I made the most amazing prime New York strips last night for dinner. Yeah, Emmy, my daughter, came over for dinner, and I wanted to do something really special. So there's a butcher near me called Salem Prime Cuts, and I went up there, and they had some 1-inch, steaks. And I said, "Do you have any really thick New York strips?" And he says, "Well, those are thick." I said, "No, twice that thick, like 2-inch thick."
Did he count some off for you?
And he did, yeah. He cut them. He said, "Do you want choice or prime?" He says, "Prime's going to cost you." And I said, "Well, then I want prime." So I got the best New York strips they offered. They were literally like square, 2 inches by 2 inches.
Wow. And how'd you cook them?
So salt and pepper, vacuum sealed, 134 degrees under vacuum, sous vide for 2 hours. and then seared in butter on all four sides. Just golden brown, delicious, which is the Maillard reaction, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Don't get me started, because this is one of my grievances.
It's not caramelization.
It's not caramelization.
No.
I'm looking at you, Robert Irvine. And let me just tell you that edge to edge, just perfect, pink, medium rare, sliced like butter, a little fat around the edges, and just absolutely perfect. Like as tender as tenderloin, but with the flavor of New York strip sirloin, which is just the best. It was probably the best steak I've had in 2 or 3 years.
Nice. Isn't it good when the best steak that you've had in 2 or 3 years has come out of your own kitchen?
Yes. Yes.
That's a Festivus miracle.
Absolutely.
Right.
I was in Vegas not too long ago and, went to eat at different restaurants there, and even really good steak restaurants. It wasn't that as good. It just wasn't as good. It was good, but not that good.
Yeah. So I did steak also on Boxing Day, and I posted it on Facebook.
Yeah.
It was also in the sous vide, and it was seared in butter on a hot pan for about 20, 30 seconds. That was about
Yep.
it. And then I cut through it, and I had it with some prawns for surf and turf. And you could see the actual searing was the brown on the outside was like a millimeter thick, and then everything else end to end was all perfectly medium rare.
That's
steak.
it. And that's why I prefer getting really thick steaks if I'm going to do them on sous vide.
Yeah.
Because that gives you more of a chance to brown the outside without overcooking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, butter. Salt, pepper, and butter. Who knew? Oh, well, I guess we did.
So today I actually ate some carbs because I had a ham left over, just like the ham bone and a little bit of ham off it. So I cut all of the ham off the bone and then basically cooked the bone in some water.
Nice.
With some vegetables to make a ham stock.
Yeah.
And then took French blue lentils, which are the lowest carb pulse, and just about half a cup across 2 meals. They've got quite a lot of carbs, but it's the lowest carb content of all of the pulses. And because I love ham and split pea soup, so that's the closest I can get to it.
Me
so
too.
I had that tonight, but I went for a bike ride, so I punched a hole in my glycogen and
good.
And yeah, so. So how are things otherwise? How's your non-food life?
Well, everybody's just weary of COVID.
Yeah.
Everybody's still weary of COVID. In fact, we're going to speak to that a little bit more later. But should we start with the airing of grievances, or?
Yeah, let's roll with it.
Because we're going with all right. So I want to leave COVID to the end, but let's start with some more superficial grievances. Let's say these are minor annoyances rather than grievances, right?
Okay. And you got the recorder on, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're recording. The clock's in the bag. We have the Festivus poll. So this is official. And
there won't be any feats of strength today.
Well, to be fair, as far as the feats of strength goes, Festivus is not over until somebody's pinned grandma. So,
well, all my grandmas are dead, so I guess that won't work.
Mine too.
All right, so consider them pinned.
So let's go straight into the airings of grievance.
All right, so I already talked about one of them, which has to do with popular media and, in fact, the Food Network, which, tries to walk the righteous path of, being fair and not singling out any diet or whatever, or talking about this diet or that diet. So they try to be agnostic.
So they don't make fun of vegans for being deficient in vitamin B12 or iron. Or
they want to include everybody in their viewership. So they don't. They try not to alienate anyone, unlike us.
Apparently.
So, Robert Irvine, I just remember watching Restaurant Impossible or one of those things. And he's, he goes to save a failing restaurant and he's teaching them how to cook steak on a flat iron, salt and pepper. And, when it browns up, he says something like, he's confusing the Maillard reaction with caramelization, saying, searing the beef draws out the natural sugars in it and caramelizes the steak. And I just want to reach through the television and punch the, well, I wouldn't punch the guy because let's face it, he's a big dude. But I want to kick him in the shins at least.
Fair
just
enough.
Stop that. Just educate yourself, man. Yeah, so there's a difference. And, and I've had people argue with me, well, there are trace amounts of sugar in beef. Yes, but that's not what is browning. It's protein.
It is. It's protein. We spoke about this the other day with Peter Ballested about the process. The browning of it actually decreases the available amino acids in the product. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it alanine? Was one of the amino acids? I don't recall which. But, yeah. So the Australian broadcaster here is they tend to try the same thing, to be very on the fence about diet, except when it comes to a keto diet. And there was this article the other day that was talking to Michael Mosley. He's a famous British doctor who did the 5-2 diet and he's done a bunch of diets. Well, he's now moving closer towards keto. He's now doing a low-calorie ketogenic diet is how he believes that you can reverse type 2 diabetes. He's wrong about that, and I'm more than happy to have that conversation with him.
Well, I think we have had that conversation over the years.
We certainly have. I mean, the point of the ketogenic diet for a type 2 diabetic is if you're not eating any glucose, your liver manages your glucose level. Right. A type 2 diabetic is unable to manage their glucose level using insulin because they're a hyperproducer of insulin and they become insulin resistant. And so they've got high glucose because they've lost the ability to deal with too much glucose. But if you make sure that your body has too little glucose, it'll make it in your liver on demand, homeostatically, and it will keep your glucose in range. And that's the entire point of the ketogenic diet for type 2 diabetes. Calories have nothing to do with it. But anyway. So so this article, I'll put it in the show notes. This article was going on about, isn't the ketogenic diet really bad for your kidney and your liver, and doesn't it cause bad breath and I was just surprised that she didn't talk about keto crotch, this interviewer, because that's the other thing that haters of the ketogenic diet came up with 2 years ago to try and make funny about type 2 diabetes and ketogenic diets. But
yeah.
So, while the ABC is our broadcaster of record, kind of like your NPR or the BBC in Britain, they really need to step up their journalism game.
So here's another example of just ignorance in the media. And these are people that I respect. I respect Robert Irvine and I respect Gordon Ramsay, right?
Right, yeah.
But I was watching this old show with Gordon Ramsay when his kids were little. It was called The F Word, and F stands for food.
Yeah,
all right, but it's Gordon Ramsay. So
it's Gordon Ramsay. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, in season 1, episode 7, and the episode is called Let's Talk About Sex and Soup. It aired December 8th, 2005. And about 6 minutes in, Gordon is talking to Davina McCall. She is an English television presenter. She was the presenter of the reality show Big Brother during its run on Channel 4 between 2000 and 2010. Let me just play this.
You're not on a particular diet or anything like that, are you?
No, I don't diet.
No. How do you keep so fit?
Work out.
I
mean, I basically eat what I want.
Yeah.
Because I work out. And that's one very good reason to work out, isn't it? So you can eat what you want.
Yeah, exactly. But have you ever been on a diet?
I did that. I did the Atkins. Worked brilliantly. I lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks. Amazing. But I was obsessed by bread. Like if somebody picked up that piece of bread over there, I'd see you at 500 paces. And they'd be like, oh my God, they're eating bread.
Really?
And then I'd say, okay, I'll have Sundays off. So I'd start eating sweets and bread at 7 in the morning, and I'd literally be like, pasta, until the end of the day. It was just ridiculous.
There is one negativity against the sort of Atkins diet, because it's not very good for your sex life.
Did you just say the word sex in my ear? You said the word sex in my ear.
I mean, does it have an
in my
effect?
ear? No, you can't do things like that to me. Oh, I'll tell you what, it did have an effect on...
It lowers your libido.
Well, I couldn't poo. I mean, if you're going to say sex, let's say poo. Yeah. I couldn't poo for ages because it was awful because you don't eat vegetables. And with that, heinous breath. Yeah. So obviously sex life is going to go out the window because you can't snog, and if you can't snog, you're not going to have sex. You took me there, Gordon.
Wow.
Right? Now, this is 2005, so this is before the word keto was even on anybody's mind. Of course, ketogenic is a word that, goes way back, but it wasn't hip. This is the Atkins diet
back then. Yeah. I was on the Atkins diet in 2000.
Yeah, me too. So but here's what she said. She says it worked brilliantly, and her yardstick was 2 weeks. Right?
That's the worst time of the ketogenic diet.
Exactly. That's when you have bread dreams and carb dreams, and you're converting over to ketones, and it really messes with your body, and the acetone comes through your breath. Is that the right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. And but there's a whole other level of bullshit here, which is Gordon Ramsay saying that the one thing that's bad about the keto diet is it messes with your sex life, ruins your libido.
On what basis? Did it ruin his libido? Is he willing to go into more detail
he just
about that?
As an authority just says, oh, well, As
an authority on being a dick.
Right.
It made him more of a dick.
He's made a career.
Or less of a dick. I don't know. Yeah.
He's made a career out of being a dick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, he asked her in the beginning, he said, how do you keep so fit? And she says, I just exercise more. Doesn't she know that you cannot out-exercise a bad diet?
Well, here's the thing. Perhaps she can. But, not a guy like me.
No.
Not a 300-pound type 2 diabetic. That isn't going to work for me. And so this is one of my grievances in general, which is that thin people telling overweight type 2 diabetics how to lose weight, as if losing weight is equivalent to getting healthy. First of all.
Exactly. Yeah.
But second of all, just, oh, well, I just go to the gym and everything's fine. Yeah, that doesn't work for a type 2 diabetic.
No. Well, certainly somebody who's morbidly obese. I mean, you go to the gym if you're morbidly obese. You can see these people on The Biggest Loser. They're morbidly obese when they start. They work out for 13 weeks. They lose half their body weight. They put all of it back on again, and their metabolism is screwed 6 years later. Kevin Hall showed this. I mean, the amount of energy that they burn when they walk in the door is cut to half.
Yeah.
By the end of the competition. And you would think when they start putting the weight back on again, their metabolic rate will go back up again, and it doesn't,
Right.
These poor people are still exercising 6 years later, but there's no competition on the card, so your ability to torture yourself like that is limited. 13 weeks is about as long as you keep that kind of pace up. So unfortunately, she doesn't understand human metabolism, and it shows.
Yeah, sure. So I want to bring people's attention to a podcast that I helped produce in 2018, which was the Obesity Code podcast. And there's a great episode on exercise. It's called Fat Adapted Exercise. And so, there's more and more of these stories of people. And Energy Balance is another one, May 11th. More and more of these people have the same story, which is, I believed that if you eat less and exercise more, you will lose weight. And guess what? You're going to lose weight. But it's just not the right way to lose weight.
It's not sustainable. See, the problem is that these people, for some reason, cannot burn fatty acids. And so because of what they're eating. If you only give your body fatty acids to use for energy, it's going to have to get good at it. It's as simple as that. And so, if you change the way somebody eats so that their body is forced to burn fatty acids, they have plenty of energy. It's not like that they don't have a metabolic haircut like they do if they're eating a diet full of vegetables and grains and a little bit of meat on the side. This is absolutely ridiculous. The Biggest Loser, I can riff for like an entire episode on how, all of the many reasons why The Biggest Loser is a stupid idea. It's like metabolic jackass. You know that show Jackass?
I remember.
The guy sticks a Hot Wheel up his rectum and goes in to get get an X-ray. It's like the metabolic version of that.
Yeah.
This will be fun for yucks. Let's get some fat people on treadmills.
Hold my beer
and torture them. Yeah.
Hey, famous last words. Hey, watch this.
Exactly. So yeah. No, I totally get it. The media just needs to step up their game.
I can't really blame the media. It's really a reflection of popular culture and popular sentiment and what people believe is true.
Yeah.
It's reflection.
There are benefits to exercise.
Sure.
One of the things that happens when you can burn fatty acids for energy, you will get thinner because fatty acids on your body in fat cells and also ectopically in your muscle cells, your liver cells and fatty liver. This is all a buffer of energy. And when you can utilize that energy, you draw down on that buffer. But your body doesn't, you're not going to become, twiggy on a ketogenic diet unless you then go ahead and starve yourself. So here's the thing where exercise actually plays a useful role. It's good to have good heart health.
Yes.
It's good to be able to not pass out when you're walking upstairs.
Yeah.
In my case, I cycle for transport. I don't do any exercise. I just ride my bike 14K a day to school and back.
Well, you even said that after eating those lentils, you punched a hole in your glycogen with a little exercise.
Yeah, I did.
That's because of the state of your body and the state of your metabolism that works. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is that also exercise provides a signal for your body as well.
Yeah.
If you want to lose weight, if you really want to lose weight, run. Now, I don't do that because I played football and my knees are shot.
Yeah.
And so I can't run on my knees, and it's probably not a good idea to run on my ankles. So I cycle, and that gives my body a different kind of signal. But if you want to be as light as possible, you need to tell your body, we need to be mobile. And your body will pick up the signals and it'll say, wait a minute, we're quite large and we're carrying around all of this energy that we're not using. And if we're going to be doing this kind of thing on a regular basis, that is running on the road, then we need to reduce the amount of weight so that this animal can do that. And, if you want to be slim around the waist, swim, because your body responds to the signals that you give it. But it's not about burning calories. You don't exercise to burn calories. That's the wrong thing. You exercise to get cardiovascular health and to give your body signals that your body will interpret as this is how the environment around me is changing, and so I need to adapt to that change.
So there's one other grievance that is wrapped in this same episode of the F word from 2005, which they actually got right, which is they're talking about packaging and in particular low-fat packaging.
Right.
And they basically got a low-fat yogurt and a regular yogurt from the store and, read the ingredients and asked people, which is healthier? And everybody said, well, the low-fat. But, here's the thing. They can take that low-fat yogurt they took the fat out of and add like a cup of sugar. Right. And they're still able to call it low fat because it is, but it has twice the calories.
Yeah.
Right. And they're empty sugar calories, which damage you metabolically. So they got that right. Yeah. But that's another one of my grievances, which is packaging, and now, false advertising, packaging, deceptive packaging or whatever, false claims has come to the keto world. And I talk about this. I've talked about this before. You go to Costco and there's so many products that have the word keto blared across the bag or the box or whatever.
Do you check the ingredients?
Yeah. And you check the ingredients and it's full of crap.
It really is.
I saw, and I think I mentioned this, I was in Whole Foods in Vegas, and I saw I was looking for some heavy cream, which, by the way, hard to find in a whole wall of cream-like products and milk-like products.
Actual cream.
One of them said keto creamer. Keto creamer and, unsweetened. Oh,
nice.
You mean like heavy cream? No.
No.
Keto
what
creamer.
Was
it was keto creamer. I didn't
dear.
even look, it wasn't cream.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
While we're airing grievances, I'm going to air a grievance about your neighbour who apparently has a monster truck and is doing donuts in your street.
I know.
So, apologies for the odd monster truck appearing on Carl's side of the audio.
We're trying to work around it, but yeah. Yeah, my neighbors love their trucks and their guns and their that kind of thing. So, and their ATVs. And apparently they had a backhoe in their yard.
Oh, nice. Just to add to the ambiance.
Oh, yeah. They were digging something in the front yard before it got really cold. Didn't really talk to him about it, but it's just, I don't know what's going on with my neighbors. But well, should we get into the more, shall we say, controversial grievances, Richard?
I'm going to get controversial. Here is my biggest grievance about 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. How
the hell did half of the low-carb influencers become conspiracy nuts?
Yeah.
I know of people who run low-carb conferences who are full-on flat earth conspiracy believers.
So if they have a conference and they're flat earthers, they obviously had to get into a plane to come to their conference and fly maybe 5 or 6 hours, and from a plane you can see the curvature of the earth. Just saying.
Maybe they just wore a blindfold and put their hands over their ears and went, la, 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 I can't see or hear any of this.
Oh, yeah.
But it's ridiculous. I mean, the thing is that as an Australian, obviously, we're crisis actors. Australia doesn't exist and we're all crisis actors.
Right, yeah. You can't be now, if you're on the other side of the world, does that mean at some point when you're flying, you have to go over the edge and go under, and now you're flying upside down?
And we're all we're all upside down. Yeah, I'm like a bat. In my native country, I'm like a bat. I sleep upside down.
I'm not a scientist, but I kind of think that's bullshit.
I think it's bullshit. Yeah. And I mean, the anti-vax stuff in the low carb community is just incredible. It's been the most. Look, I'm disappointed in you lot. It's been the most disappointing thing for me, disheartening thing for me this year, that people I respected, who, I mean, I'm literally having to go back over everything they've ever said to see, okay, what was the basis for that claim?
Yeah.
And I probably should have done that in the first place.
Yeah.
I had somebody well known in the low carb community in July of 2020 assure me on the basis of no evidence at all that the pandemic would be over by the end of September. That everyone's getting it. We're all becoming immune. This virus is a case-demic, and
it was an opinion.
It was an opinion. It was an opinion based on no facts.
Well, it wasn't put forth as opinion.
No, it was put forward as an assertion. Yeah,
an assertion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, the thing is, I mean, not all vaccines are safe. I mean, this is a fact. And,
right.
You need to think critically, am I going to put this foreign thing in my body?
Right.
But when you compare all of the things that could happen from the actual disease and the fact that, I mean, the mRNA vaccines are remarkable. I did an undergraduate with a minor in molecular biology. So I'm not a molecular biologist, but I've been taught by some experts. And the technology that's gone into this is not something that was invented since January 2020.
Yeah.
This is not something that we started working on in at the beginning of the pandemic. This is something that's been going on for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, the virus is just a lipid envelope with mRNA inside. The virus has also got RNA inside, and it's got 29 different proteins plus the spike on the outside.
Yeah.
It infects your cell. It'll transfect your cell and get your cell to make entire viruses. And every virus that takes over a cell produces roughly 10,000 daughter virions to infect all of the cells around it. And so this is a plus. It also includes a lot of disease. Plus, there's 29 different proteins that you could make an immune response to one of these 29 proteins that's too similar to one of your self proteins, and all of a sudden you've got autoimmunity. I mean, the risk of the actual virus compared to the risk of a lipid envelope with the instructions to make just one of these proteins, a spike protein, enough to be able to produce neutralizing antibodies, enough to be able to produce T-cell immunity for at least 17 years and probably lifelong. I don't get how the low-carb community all of a sudden has fostered so many people who believe in really strange conspiracies. I get the idea that, that pharmaceuticals are bad. I mean, we've been overprescribed pharmaceuticals for
true.
Cholesterol, for diabetes, for heart disease, for hypertension.
It's a bit of the boy who cried wolf, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that it's unfortunate because here's something that has been created to save lives.
Yeah,
and it has, and with almost half the world being vaccinated now. It's not an issue of it's dangerous or not. Half the world has been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right? Is half the world dead? No.
98.5% of people in Canberra are vaccinated.
Yeah. How many of them died from the vaccine?
None that I'm aware of. And I wouldn't be surprised
if there was a few.
We have 400,000 people in Canberra, and if every single one of them got the vaccine, some of the instances of sometimes fatal side effects from the vaccine, like myocarditis, is roughly 4 in 100,000. So there would be 16 people probably in Canberra who had myocarditis.
Right.
But this is something that's transitory and goes away. And people spontaneously have myocarditis when they're fighting off any kind of virus. So,
right.
The incidence of myocarditis from the actual SARS-CoV-2 virus, or for influenza or any other virus for that matter, is quite high. So, the fact that I'm not aware of any in Canberra that have had serious side effects, I would be surprised if there wasn't some, but.
Right, but I mean, the fact is, when you look at the numbers, the risk-reward ratio is just so low.
Totally unbalanced. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, 50% of all keto dudes have had coronavirus, so have had COVID. So it's coming for all of us. So here's the thing: do you want your body to be making an immune response to spikes on the virus while it's dealing with every cell being infected, producing 10,000 replication competent daughter viruses, plus the 5-alarm emergency of the disease that it's causing?
Yeah.
Or do you want to pre-warn your immune system by just saying, hey, buddy, here's the spike. If you ever see this again.
It's sort of, I sort of have an analog to how we process audio files here at PWOP Studios, which is, we do this for every podcast. Before we start recording, we hold our breath and make no noise for 5 seconds to get the ambient noise. And then we teach the computer, hey, this is background noise.
Right.
Now, remove the background noise from this audio file without disturbing the actual signal. That's not background noise. And an mRNA vaccine is very similar, or isn't it? Because it trains your immune system and says, hey, you see this thing right here? Go get
this. This is on the outside of the viruses.
Yes.
Yeah.
See this spike right here? When you see that, destroy it.
Exactly.
And then it's out of your system in like what, two or 3 days, and it's completely gone, right? The mRNA.
Oh, the mRNA doesn't last for more than about 5 hours.
There you go.
So if you've ever worked with mRNA on a bench, or RNA on a bench, you have to keep it in liquid nitrogen. You have to keep it cold and if your liquid nitrogen boils off overnight, you come in, you just got a vial of grey goo. There is no RNA left after that. So in the body, at body temperature, it degrades really quite quickly. Plus, we have enzymes that are designed to get rid of any RNA floating around the body. So, within a couple of days of getting a vaccine, there is nothing left of the vaccine anymore. You've turned it into, you've taken those lipids and you've repurposed them to use them for energy or to reuse in other phospholipid membranes. You've taken the nuclear bases from the RNA. You've essentially chop that all up and reutilize those to make RNA to make different proteins. So that.
But okay, so we know I think you get it by now that we both understand the safety and the efficacy of this vaccine and this whole series of vaccines. But we were talking about the airing of grievances, and we were talking about people, not just in the low carb community, but it seems like in the United States anyway, it's such a divisive issue. It's become cultural and political, and it's unfortunately tied to in people's minds the whole fake news thing and, election fraud and all of these things that a certain person kind of tried to manipulate people tried to manipulate the message and conflate things. And therefore, if, somebody leans politically towards this tribe, they're going to believe all the cultural things that go along with that. And part of that culture is a mistrust of government, right? Which, okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
I don't trust government either.
I don't trust government either, but I do trust science.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, there is some science that is bad. There is, I don't trust the first rendering of the Sydney Diet Heart Study.
Right.
But here's the thing about science is that Christopher Ramsden went back in over the Sydney Diet Heart Study and the Minnesota coronary experiment, looked at the actual data and said the claims in these studies are not supported by the data, and he reanalyzed the data, and so science corrects itself. It's a method of correcting itself.
Right.
And that's, I mean, Ansel Keys wanted to show, he had this study in mental hospitals in Minnesota where he managed, it's a really clever trick, he managed to produce two meals that looked and tasted absolutely identical, but one was high in saturated fat and the other was high in polyunsaturated fat. Yeah. And he had a theory, if I reduce the saturated fat, I'm going to lower cholesterol. And sure enough, that's exactly what it did, but more people died who ate the polyunsaturated versions of the foods. More people died of cancer, of heart disease, and the same thing happened with the Sydney Diet Heart Study. That evidence was actually buried, so the paper was basically came out and said, well, yeah, if you increase increase saturated fat, you increase cholesterol, and that's a priori bad. So therefore, it's bad to add saturated fat.
And people who understand the history of the ketogenic diet understand that science is influenced by money sometimes, and all of these things, and so therefore, we can apply those same truisms to vaccines and to this whole kerfuffle here that's going on. But the science doesn't bear what people are putting out there, and it's disheartening to see from people that we respect so much. And we've said this before on the show. Really, really,
some of our guests
who are not coming back. Sorry to say, but, you brought up this idea that on social media they use these shibboleths, which is maybe even a single word that, identifies them as being part of a tribe.
Yeah. So shibboleth is an interesting term. It actually comes from the Hebrew, and it means the part of the grain that has the payload. The starch of the grain and the germ of the grain is the shibboleth. And one of the tribes in the region had a similar word, but they would, instead of saying shibboleth, they would say sibboleth. And so if you start a conversation, you turn the conversation towards talking about grains, you could pick up that they were the wrong tribe because they were using the wrong term.
Right.
And you knew your people. If they said shibboleth, you knew they were your in crowd. If they said sibboleth, you knew that was the out crowd. So this is what this term shibboleth is used for. But it's used as a term for words that indicate that somebody is in your in group and not in your out group.
Right.
And on Facebook went through this. I think they realized that they had problems in 2016, so they started trying to use artificial intelligence to analyze people's posts to look for clearly fake. And certainly when the pandemic happened, they were worried about people spreading incorrect information about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And so they had these artificial intelligence programs they weren't very good. They were kind of artificial stupidity because they picked up things like people talking about breast cancer. They said this person's talking about porn or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, here's the thing. I mean, all of a sudden, posts on the subject of COVID were COVID-19, as it was called back then, were being tagged for being, potentially incorrect. And here's some correct information, fact-checked information. And the fact-checking wasn't particularly good. So it was kind of it was
more like
clippy,
top wasn't it? It was more like, hey,
it was like,
I see you're reading something about COVID. Yeah. Here's a link to an article that we know is valid. Go to
It is. Facebook fact check is a kind of like Microsoft Clippy. Absolutely. Perfect analogy. And so a bunch of people decided instead of using the term COVID-19, they'd spell it backwards to Divock91. And here's the thing. Artificial intelligence is not that dumb. It's not like you can't make a search term for COVID-19 and say, well, wait a minute, let's do it backwards just in case nobody can spell. Or let's do it with, let's put the word vaccine with X's instead of C's.
Yeah.
Or let's talk about, the COVID juice instead of the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Or the C-juice. I mean, it's not like Facebook can't add more search terms into their list. It's not about trying to hide from the fact checkers. It's about telling people, hey, I'm with you. I know this thing is all bullshit.
Yeah.
So this use of shibboleths, now I've seen it top to tail through the keto community from doctors, some locally, from professors, from dietitians, from nutritionists, from people who should know better.
And there's a bit of this bandwagon propaganda too, like, hey, I've got this person and this person and this person and this person all in my tribe.
Yeah, I have the creme de la creme on my side.
Yeah, so why?
And you should really join us.
You should join us. Yes.
Didn't somebody say to you,
yes.
I hear Richard saying horrible things about vaccination, and are you on my side or Richard's side?
Yep, I did. Are you kidding me? Right? I'm on the side of science. Can we talk about that maybe?
Yeah. Anyway, the whole thing about follow the science and then mocking what science is not a thing. It's a method. The scientific method is how we make sure that we don't fool ourselves.
Right.
Scientific method is how we put out our homework, put out all of our working out of how we got to our result.
Yep.
To our peers, to the wider world, and we say, here's the claim that I'm making, and here's how I arrived at that claim, and here are all of the claims from other people, here are the references of all of the claims that other people have made that I'm using to get to my claim. Now, what do you think? Did I do okay?
It's not, I'm right and you're wrong. It's prove me wrong.
Yeah.
It's prove me wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take me to task.
The first person who should try and prove themselves wrong is the scientists themselves.
Absolutely.
I mean, the first job of a scientist is to try and prove yourself wrong,
if
you're doing it properly. So, it's the whole shibboleth thing is kind of childish and ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and while I'm on about grievances, the other thing is food purity.
Oh yeah.
So, people who say you've got to have grass-fed steers named James from the western flank of the Pyrenees, or you're not eating righteously. The whole thing is that here's the thing: you can take somebody who is a type 2 diabetic who is eating McDonald's every day,
yep,
and get them just to take away the bun and the chips and drink a Diet Coke instead of a full-strength Coke.
Yep.
And just get the burger and the cheese.
Yeah.
And, cut the special sauce.
Like Tom
Have
Naughton.
a salad, knock yourself out. Yeah. You could do that, and you are going to reverse their type 2 diabetes. That is going to get you 95% of the way to getting them to a healthy diet. It's still rubbish food. It's still cheap, the cheapest possible inputs. It's still horrible fast food, but it's not about the food purity, about, removing the carbs will get you 95% of the way there.
Yeah.
Maybe reducing seed oils will get you another 4%, and, you got 1% left to go. You're 99% of the way there, removing just carbs and seed oils.
In other words, you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, pretty much. It's possible that there might be scientific evidence that shows that oxalates are bad for us, and that the pH of the food that we're eating is going to have an effect on us. That evidence does not exist today. And the kind of experiment that you would have to do to show that involves feeding somebody for 80 years to see what happens to them. And in a large enough group of people, and hopefully identical twins, where you fed the other identical twin the control diet. I mean, that's the kinds of experiments that you need to do to be able to make those kinds of claims. So,
which are impossible, really.
Yeah. It's also come into COVID. I mean, people are saying, well, as long as you eat a ketogenic diet, you won't get COVID. No, actually, 50% of all keto dudes got COVID while eating a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the diet. It'll reduce the impact of the disease. Sure.
Yeah.
But we don't know. I mean, diabetes and obesity are both cofactors for severe disease with COVID, but we don't know why that is. Nobody knows why that is at this point. We just see the observation, but we don't know if it's something upstream from those things. Maybe there is something about the genetics of people who 20 years after they're born, they start to develop obesity and type 2 diabetes. Maybe there's something about the genetics of the day that they were born that is going to impact the likelihood that they're going to get worse with COVID.
So here's another one of my grievances that is exactly related to what you're talking about, which is, people in the low carb community who have experienced and are experiencing metabolic health, right? Because we know what that is. And therefore feel that, they're fine, right? I'm not going to get it, so I'm fine. So why do we need all these masks and everything, right? Yeah, okay. So it's just a completely selfish point of view, and I would say even a bit evil to think that the attitude comes across.
I'm all right, Jack.
The attitude comes across that, hey, maybe if you stop eating crap carbs, you'll be safe like me. So you get what you get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you let these people die. I don't care. Because, we know the answer, and the answer is metabolic health. And if you're eating Doritos every day and you're going into the hospital for COVID, that's what you get. And I think that is absolutely inhuman. It's completely inhumane. And, where's your compassion for your fellow man? How about you use that opportunity to educate people instead of, just waving them off and saying, you know what, this is like thinning the herd. That's another thing I hear once in a while. It's thinning the herd. We're getting rid of all the stupid people. Yeah, great. And so I wear a mask when I go out, not because I'm worried about getting COVID, because look, I had it and I'm vaccinated 3 times.
You got the super immunity right there.
Yeah. So maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know. But the fact is that if I get it again, I'm not going to the hospital. So that's not why I wear the mask. I wear my mask to protect you, because the last person that I came in contact with and stood and had a conversation with for an hour or whatever, and then I may have given it to me if I didn't have a mask, and then I go and I talk to you and I give it to you, I'm going to be fine, but I'm giving you COVID, and you're going to take it home to grandma, and she's immunocompromised, and who knows what's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
So I do that for you, man. And I got in an elevator in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas last month, and there's All right. I'm not going to characterize the people that were there as being in a certain group, but they were. And, I got in the elevator with my mask on, and I'm the only one in the elevator with a mask on. And they all look at me, and these two guys in particular look at me and laugh, and they just start laughing. Now, I know what they're laughing about, right? I know they're laughing. What is this guy doing? It's like, like, how sad is it that we aren't even free to go into an elevator, and where, this guy's life must be so pathetic that he's got to walk around with a mask and blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing it for you, mother effer.
As you exited the elevator, you should have leaned into him and whispered, "I just passed wind. Enjoy." Hey, you might want a mask for what I just did in this elevator.
Yeah, pardon my onions.
So, the New York Times did this article where they looked at since vaccinations have become universally available for adults. By state, they looked at what the vaccination rate of each state was and what the deaths per 100,000 were in each state.
Okay. And
so they put a circle for each state along the y-axis. Up the side of the graph was the number of deaths from 0 per 100,000 to 5 per 100,000, 10 per 100,000, 15, 20.
Right.
So up to 20 deaths per 100,000. This was per month. So these were how many deaths were there, 10 deaths per 100,000 per month or 20 deaths per 100,000 per month. Mm-hmm. And then along the bottom they had the vaccination take-up. So from 45% to 80% vaccination. And if you actually look at the states, the line is very clearly goes down and to the right. And so the states that had the least take up in vaccination had the greatest number of deaths, and the states that had the highest take up in vaccination, like Vermont is sort of like 78% vaccinated, and they've only got 4 deaths per 100,000 per month.
Yeah.
And Wyoming, which is about 47% vaccinated, has 17 deaths per month.
Right.
Per 100,000 people. So I looked at this and I thought, that's interesting. Is there anything that can tell us what causes a state to be on one side of that line or another? And so I looked at the Electoral College results from the 2020 election and coloured each dot with a red if they went for Trump and Pence, or a blue if they went for Biden and Harris.
Yeah.
And so it is remarkable that all of the states that have the lowest vaccination and the highest number of deaths, except for Georgia, all of the states are red.
Yeah.
Michigan is sort of into the red zone, but all of the states to the right half of that are all blue.
See, now, critics would say you're being political. No, people, this is data.
It is data.
It's a fact.
It is a fact, yes. It is a fact. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Why however, would 2 states have the same amount of vaccination? So, for example, Montana and North Dakota have roughly the same amount of vaccination, about 53% vaccinated.
Okay.
Yet North Dakota is like 8 deaths per 100,000, and Montana is like 16 deaths per 100,000. So why would it be double in one state? And they're both red states, of course, but why would it be double in one state? So I looked at the obesity rate. So I got a list of the states ranked by obesity. So the lowest state, I think, was DC, which has the lowest rate of obesity, to the highest state, Mississippi, which has the highest amount of obesity. And I put a number next to each state based on where they are on that list, whether they're more obese or less obese. The interesting thing about Montana and North Dakota is Montana is the 41st most obese state.
Wow.
And North Dakota is 21st. So North Dakota is more obese than Montana, and yet North Dakota's death rate is 8 per 100,000 and Montana's is 16 per 100,000.
Interesting.
So yes, obesity and diabetes has an effect, but when you actually look at, this is all aggregated up to the state level.
Right.
obesity doesn't quite describe it. In some cases where you can get some states that have the same level of vaccination, so but different levels of mortality, the obesity rates, it has a clear factor, but there are some that are outliers. And so obesity doesn't tell you all the story, but I'm pretty sure if you get vaccinated, your chance of dying of this is a lot lower.
That's what the data says. Yeah.
That's just data, and yeah, it is a bit political, and because I'm in Australia, I can say these kinds of things.
But it's only political because the reality is political. The reality is that people in the red states tend to be more critical of vaccines than not take them. And it's a shame.
Bears out the data.
It's a shame because we're really one of the only countries where this is the case. There are very few other politicized vaccine philosophies out there, at a national level. It's a shame.
I mean, we have people protesting vaccines. And the people who are protesting the vaccines in Melbourne are also carrying flags from unions. I mean, they're protesting labour laws, and then there was a group who burned the front door of the old Parliament House today, who included a lot of people complaining about vaccines.
Yeah.
But there was also Indigenous Australians. I mean, that was the primary protest. So we in Australia we do have people protesting that, and they have a right to do that, and they should, and they deserve the right to be able to freely assemble and to petition their government and to use their free speech to say what they have to say.
Sure.
But we don't have quite the problem of an entire half of the population on a cultural issue.
Yeah.
Coming up with a conclusion that is going to threaten their lives. So, I find
okay.
frustrating.
I think it's time for feats of strength.
I thought that's what we just did.
Yeah, maybe.
I needed some strength to get through some of that.
So we have an announcement, and that's what I wanted to get to at the end here, that we're putting the show on ice until further notice. There's a few reasons for this. One big reason is Richard's going back to school, and
I am.
He's swinging for the fences, and he needs to be head down. And that's why we stopped the last time, right?
Yeah.
And also, Keto Fest is off for next year.
I don't think we could possibly do it in October because we don't know what the situation is.
It's just too unknown. That's right. And we thought we would be in the clear now, and then Omicron happened, and it's too early. So we're going to keep the website up. We're going to keep getting names and emails for those people who are interested. I'm also going to add a little send us a note message field on there. So if there's something that you want to tell us, you can do that. But also cost and time and money is another reason. We would like to do a new show every week, and we wanted to do that, but our Patreon doesn't allow for that because there are expenses.
You know how we could have got Patreon to pay for it is we could have come out as anti-vaxxers, because I know of a prominent low-carb person who's become an anti-vaxxer and now makes $200,000 a year.
It's a popular sentiment, and reality is not very popular right now because it kind of sucks, right? So, if you are a Patreon, you want to continue, that's fine, but we don't expect you to. So if you feel free to revoke your support, but we want you to please continue to support Richard's forum Patreon and Carrie's as well, because the forum is going to continue on.
Yeah, we're going to keep the forum up. I mean, our goal is for the forum to outlast us. So, so that will keep up.
Yeah.
For as long as we can keep paying the bills.
That's it. So, firmly, Richard and I stand for science, and we hope you do too. And it's not a political issue. It's purely about science and data. And, convince us otherwise. That's the thing. And if you're going to try to convince us otherwise, don't be a dick.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, we've been avoiding speaking on these subjects for the past 6 months because we didn't feel it was appropriate on the ketogenic podcast. But, it's all come bubbling out at the end because it's been a very disappointing year.
Yeah,
and I'm
really
disappointed in a lot of people in this community.
Yeah. Well, we love you, and thanks for listening. And
we do.
Hopefully, we'll be back when things return to normal. But until then, keep in touch, be on the forum, and don't drive like my brother.
He's not your neighbor with a monster truck, is he?
No. I say that because that's how the car talk guys would sign off. The Malayatsi brothers, they would say, "Don't drive like my brother," and the other one would say, "Don't drive like my brother."
Well,
yeah.
We have our own sign off here, Carl. That's keep calm and keto on.
That's right. Keep calm and keto on. All right. And we'll see you hopefully some other time on Two Keto Dudes.